What's going on, guys? Got my champagne, which feels kind of fitting for a movie like this. May December. This is a Netflix original that releases on Netflix. It's going to be in select theaters in November, but releases on Netflix on December 1st. And this is directed by legendary director Todd Haynes, who's done films like Carol, I'm Not There, Far From Heaven, a few other great films. I think it was Far From Heaven. I think that's the name of it that I'm thinking of. But yeah, this dude is a fantastic director. One of my favorites working in the business. And so this is absolutely going to be one of my most anticipated films. Yeah, Far From Heaven, Carol, Velvet Goldmine, Velvet Goldmine he did. And so there's several great films that Todd Haynes has done. And this is like a return to form for him. Let me just say that straight up, because I love this film. One of my most anticipated at the festival. Honestly, maybe up there with Perfect Days is like my most anticipated, because Wim Wenders, Perfect Days, and then Todd Haynes May December. That's the reason why they were both my most anticipated. This one does not disappoint. He's got a very wacky kind of tone to him. It's kind of hard to describe. It's like an absurdist kind of tone that he does with movies, but they all touch on subjects that are very important and dark, and it reaches the darkness of humanity and the depravity of humanity, and it's very interesting the way this director does his art. This one stars Natalie Portman, Julianne Moore, and Natalie Portman is doing research for this role that she's in because she's an actress, and she's going to be playing the role that Julianne Moore is in this movie. And so she visits her, starts really studying her, all this stuff. But then you find out this dark thing, and this is in the trailer, so it's not really much of a spoiler. You find out this dark past about where Julianne Moore's character apparently had an affair with a 7th grader. So that was something that she went to jail for it, and was brought out of jail for it. And so that is a part of the dark past that starts coming back. But then more questions start to be brought up, and you're like, oh, shoot. Like, it starts to leave you in a distraught kind of persona, I guess you can say. This film just kept me in its grasp. I loved it. This is the writing here. The screenplay is actually not from Todd Haynes. It's from Sammy Birch. And it is my favorite screenplay of the year, just because the way it's able to balance itself out and not feel shoehorned or too over the top. And it's just got the quotable lines, quotable dialogue. So I love it so much. And then you get to the directing from Todd Haynes. He's not with his normal DP who works with him all the time. This time, that's one thing that got me kind of worried. The cinematographer this time around is Christopher Boulavout, who's done like First Cow. He's done Emma, and now he's done, this film. So it has it's got this like film grainy look to it that looked really cool, I thought, and added this layer of like depth from just the cinematography alone. The score here is very loud and boisterous, and like it was swelling the speakers up and everything, and I loved it. It's technically not an original score. There are parts of it that are original, but then there are parts of it used from like an old 70s movie or something like that. So I have to look back at what the 70s movie was again. So it wouldn't be eligible for Best Original Score at the Oscars, unfortunately. But this is something that would hadn't that would have been worthy of a nomination if it was original, because the score is incredible. Yeah, all the performances are some of the best of the year. Easily. Natalie Portman, she has this like scene that's like a 5-minute monologue, and that is some of the best acting I've seen this year. Like, holy shit, was that good? She kills it in this movie. Probably her best performance, I'd say, since like Jackie, because she was great in Jackie, but that was back in 2016. So this is her best performance since like 2016, guys. And then Julianne Moore, this is like her best performance since Still Alice, like, which she won the Oscar for. Both of them won the Oscars. Natalie Portman for Black Swan, Julianne Moore for Still Alice. And one thing I love about Julianne Moore's character, one thing I was worried about going into this movie is I hope they don't try to make me sympathize with her character, because her character did sexually assaulted a child. So that is definitely something that is, a very touchy subject, or a very iffy kind of subject to deal with. But not only does the film handle it exceptionally, but she herself, you fucking hate her. She's despicable. Like, they don't make you sympathize with her at all. She is a despicable character, and I love that. There's a lot of parts in this movie that people were laughing at, and when I told you the subject, you're probably like, well, this isn't a movie you should be laughing at, right? It's sort of satire, but at the same time, this is going to be sort of like Tar for me, where Tar last year was a movie that when I first watched it, it was a drama. Then the second time I watched it, it was a horror film. Then the third time I watched it, it was a black comedy satire. So it's like switches genres with each time I watch it. And I feel like this is a movie that's like that. There are some people who will see this as a drama. There's some people who see this as a dark satire. There are some people who could see this as like a horror film. There's some people who could see this as multiple different genres. And that's what's impressive to me, because it will make me want to revisit. It will make you guys want to revisit this movie over and over again to see just what all you can see in this movie. Because I know I missed so much, and we'll catch even more. But the real performance I really want to talk about here, the performance that stole the whole movie, in my opinion. All of them were great. All of them were fantastic. But the one that really stole the show for me was Charles Melton, this dude from Riverdale, who I watched like one season of Riverdale, wasn't big into it. He comes in this movie delivering a powerhouse performance. He's standing up against two Oscar, not nominees, two Oscar winners, guys. He's up against two Oscar winners and outshines them both. Pretty much, he plays the victim of the abuse. And it's very interesting to see. Now he's an adult, because now that's part of the plot I forgot to mention, is him and Julianne Moore's character are still together all these years later. But he's like in his 30s. She's like 60, 70 something. And you can still, one thing that would be hard for an actor to get to, but he did it so exceptionally, was he found a way to keep that seventh grader in there. And so that seventh grader was coming out in the performance, and he still had these childlike tendencies. There's a scene where he's like doing pot with his son or something like that, and he doesn't know how to worse. He's like acting like a complete wuss about it, and I'm like, bro, and that's probably because he's a seventh grader at heart. It's, oh God, I love this movie, guys. The way it addresses trauma on that perspective, and how when you're at that age and then you can get like married to this person later on, all this stuff, and that's all you know, for a while you're going to think that's a normal behavior. You're going to think that's a normal way of life. But once it's called out now, he's starting to look back at his life and say, was this normal? Was I too young? Were you too old? Like, was this at all? Like, because at first he brushed it off, but did he though? Because it's very fascinating the way they handle the subject of trauma with him, and the way they handle the subject of trauma even with Julianne Moore's character. Because Julianne Moore's character had a lot of trauma from her two brothers. They explain that in this movie. Her two brothers caused her a lot of trauma, like sexual trauma, and that's what led to her mindset to do something like that. It doesn't condone it, which I love. The film doesn't condone her mindset. It just tells you why someone would probably do something like this. It explores the psyche of it, the psyche of both the abuser and of the victim, which I love. I love it. And it also explores the psyche of the Hollywood actor that would go as far to do anything she can for a role. Because as this movie progresses, you see Natalie Portman's character is almost becoming the Julianne Moore character in a way. She is like wearing the same clothes as her. She's styling her hair the same way. And as she studies her, she's like starting to follow in her footsteps. I love that exploration of dark Hollywood as well, the darker sides of it. Because there are those darker sides. There's like method acting or those people like that. And so I found that fascinating, and just the exploration of it all there. I found that absolutely fascinating and fantastic. And the way this film was able to shift tones and not make it feel out of place at all is, again, brilliant. Yeah, Charles Melton was able to make you just cry for him, and the way that he was feeling from this. Like, he better get an Oscar nomination, if not win, for this movie. Because this is the supporting performance of the year. The best supporting performance I've seen this year. It blew me away, guys. Like, you are not prepared for how good Charles Melton is in this movie. Like, not at all. Are y'all prepared for that? I don't want to give away too much. I feel like I've already talked at length about this movie, so I think I'm going to end it here, guys. But wow, what a film. Check this one out. As far as my cons are concerned, my only cons I have of this film are that I would say, because he has like he has sisters in this, or Charles Melton has daughters in this movie. Daughters, like two daughters and one son. And I do kind of wish we would have gotten a little bit of perspective from them, because we never really got to understand, like, do they support what happened? Are they upset at their mom? Do they hate their mom? Like, what's the deal there? Also, I get it's satire, but she would not be out of prison for a crime like that. She would have stayed in prison for a crime that was that big. There's no way she would have gotten out of prison, I feel. So, yeah, that's just a couple things, but they're like nitpicks, guys. I barely have any issues with this movie. This is one of the biggest highlights of the festival for me. One of the best movies I've seen this year. So it's for sure in my top 10 of the year. I've seen, guys, there are like 4 movies I saw at the festival that are all in my top 10 of the year. Like, it's insane. It's how good the festival is this year. So definitely see May December. And the reason why it's called May December, you will see it whenever you watch it, but it has to do with the Natalie Portman character and the Julianne Moore character. At least that's what I got from it. So that's it's very interesting if you love films about Hollywood, about films, about acting, about the darker sides of Hollywood, or if you just love films that explore darker subject matters and depravity of humanity, but can explore it in a way that's almost like satirical. Because when you laugh at certain things, you're not laughing with it, what's happening. You're laughing, like when Julianne Moore says the shit she says, you're not laughing with her, you're laughing at her. You're like, this is a buffoon, an idiot. You're laughing at her. And that's why they're able to do that in a way that's so expertly done. It's melodramatic in certain aspects. There's like over the top melodramatic scenes, but then there'll be like these longer scenes of just drama, and it's fascinating, guys. It's hard to describe. Just check this one out. If it's in a theater playing near you, definitely go check it out in theater, because the crowd here was hyped. This was probably the best crowd I saw at the Virginia Film Festival. Everyone was into it. They freaking adored it. So if you can, go see this in a theater. But if you can't, on December 1st, go see it on Netflix, which is ironic. It's coming out December 1st on Netflix, and it's called May December. That's just something I kind of find ironic. So, yeah, guys. Masterpiece of cinema. Todd Haynes is back. So happy for him. Hope this can rack up a few nominations, several categories, but especially Charles Mountain. And I'll be talking about it more on Awards Roundtable. So you guys can definitely look forward to that and all the other reviews I have for you going forward. That'll be it for this review. Until next time, stay classy, my friends, and keep on watching those movies.